Hey there, macro folks. This is Mr. Hooker, and we are starting video number 2 for GDP and the CPI. We're going to start that looking at the BEA website. The BEA is the Bureau of Economic Analysis. They are part of the Department of Commerce. They are the folks that bring you all the GDP statistics. Once again, I mentioned this in the last chapter. A lot of the government statisticians got fired. Some of those were BEA people. So just take that into consideration with all of that. So where we're going to go with this is like this is your landing page, bea.gov. Once again, this is your landing page. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. You see here it says principal federal economic indicators. So you got gross domestic product, personal income, international trade in goods and services, and international transactions. So if you are interested in personal income or international trade, by all means, check those out. What we are looking at today is gross domestic product. And so we are going to do that. Now, this is the news release. You can see we've got 3 tabs: news release, related materials, and contacts. This is the news release. So every time there is a release on GDP, this is what the news media is picking up. And then they're going to spend this however the heck they want to spend this. So everybody is getting this exact same data and then telling you whatever the heck they're telling you from that. So if you want to know like exactly what they did, what they're talking about, come to this website, look at this news release, and you can figure out what the heck is going on yourself. Now, here are the related materials to said news release. Here is the full release with the tables only, the historical comparisons, the key source data and assumptions, the revision information, and this is the one that last month went completely bonkers for the unemployment one, not the GDP one. For the unemployment, the revision data where they revised it for a full year. So when you go to these things and you can see these, it's kind of crazy. I am just going to pull the tables. It's best when you do these things to pull um, the full release and tables. I'm not going to do that today. I am going to look at this because this is really what I want to show you, what you can do with these tables. So they come up in Excel eventually, maybe. Yeah, there we go. So the first tab, and it's just a boatload of tabs. So um, your first tab tells you the table of contents. And then table 1 is real gross domestic product and related measures, percent change from the preceding period. So basically, we grew 2.8% right there. And if I go out here, we grew at a quarter 1 of 2025 was not a good period for us. We had some crazy things going on at the beginning of the year. Um, and so that stuff happened. Come on, don't do that to me. But it did to me. And so we had some crazy thing happening. We grew at a negative 0.5% rate. Um, and then quarter 2 was a much better period. We stabilized, people adjusted, and we grew at a 3.3% rate. So if you remember, it was the last chapter, we were talking about long run growth. I said we needed to grow somewhere between 1 and 3%. Well, once you have gone negative, you need to grow at 3 or better to make up a little bit of that. And so we grew at 3.3, which is good. Life is good for us. All right, let's move on to table 2, ladies and gentlemen. Contributions percent change in real gross domestic product. Actually, let's not do 2. Let's move on. Gross domestic product level and change from preceding period. Yeah, this is the one we want. All right, so let's do this. So this is in billions of dollars. All right, so up to this point, it's billions of dollars, and this one is billions of chained 2017 dollars. So this is the difference between these two halves. One Left half, current money. That is today's dollars, 2025 dollars. Right half, billions of chained 2017 dollars. That is what we call real GDP. In other words, it has been inflation adjusted. Okay? Big difference. We will talk about that later, but you need to understand the difference between left and right. Left is today money. Like you go out, it's $5, it's still $5. Right, it is inflation adjusted, which is good if you are wanting to compare to previous years. Okay. So in today's dollars, our GDP quarter 2 2025 was $30.353 trillion. That's how much money we spent. And this is expenditure approach. This is not income approach, ladies and gentlemen. So this you can look and see how much it was on every little category. They got subcategories. They got all that stuff, all that, and there's your addenda for all of those things, right? So there's all your categories. Now, real GDP, inflation adjusted GDP, right? Let's go. 23 trillion, 23.703 trillion dollars. So $23.7 trillion versus $30.3 trillion. So you basically what that says, what that tells you, there's a massive difference between the current dollar number and the inflation adjusted number. We got a chunk of inflation in there. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. I hope not. I hope none of y'all are surprised. If you are surprised, welcome to 2025. Price indexes for GDP and related measures, percent change from preceding periods. So these are just indexes. Indexes are very simple things, and we will talk about those later. But basically, it's just a measure, and you're doing. Well, I'll teach you how to do that math in a little bit, but I'm not going to teach you that math while we're looking at the table. So index went down 3.8 to 2.2, 2.0, which is good. So yeah, we're good. Table 5, real GDP, annual percentage change. Yeah. So 2023, 3.2, 2024, 2.5. We're good. We're good. Um, real GDP percentage change from quarter 1 a year ago. So 2.1. So a little bit of growth. That's good. Like I said, want 2 to 2.5% growth. Relation of GDP, gross national product, and national income. So gross national product is about the factors that are from your country. So those people that are those people that are these American factors. So American companies doing business in Mexico, doing business in Canada, doing business in Germany, doing business in France. Those things that they own, their people, their plants, not the land, but the buildings that they paid for are their factors, their capital or their factors. Those count into our GNP, but not our GDP. Um, so that's kind of where that goes. So any GNP kind of thing does that. So that's where you go GDP plus income receipts from the rest of the world minus income payments to the rest of the world. And that's your GNP. So that's actually how that works out. Personal income and its disposition. So personal income in 2025 was $25.7 trillion. Like $7 trillion actually. And then you can actually get down on that a little bit. We should get to disposable. So you're taking all of these things, and that will give you disposable personal income. So disposable personal income is all of that stuff minus some other things, including taxes, right? So this is the money that you have after taxes, and you're supposed to be able to spend it. And so that gives you 22,532. So 22.5 trillion dollars. And then if you take that and you take out what they call necessary bills, that gives you what they call discretionary income, and that's the money you could blow on whatever thing you want, bonds, whatever. It's all good. So that's the BEA. That's the BEA piece. So we're good. So I got that for a second to get rid of that. And then we'll put it back. We'll kill that. And we'll go back to this. All right. Learn by doing here. Let's move that there. All right, we're good. Are the following in US GDP? One, the price paid by a German tourist when staying at a New York hotel. Price paid by an American tourist when staying at a Berlin hotel. Both, neither, only the price paid by the German tourist, or only the price paid by the American tourist. It ain't both or neither. And that didn't work. It is only the one for the German tourist. All right. So what's the problems? What's the problems with GDP? What are the pitfalls? It's easy to confuse what's included and excluded from GDP. Changes to inventories are included, but the steel used to make cars is not. So we only include items that are newly produced and aren't used in production. So N is the investment spending, the capital spending, it's part of investment spending. Domestically produced final goods and services, including the capital goods, new construction of structures. So crazy thing on that. New housing is part of investment, not consumption. Changes to inventories. So any change of inventory is inventory investment, so that goes into investment. Any unsold inventory is then bought at the end of the year and goes into inventory investment again. Uh, so it's a weird thing how that works, but any unsold inventory goes there. Out, intermediate goods and services, used goods. A lot of people buy used goods. So if you buy a used house, it's a large purchase, but it's not in GDP. Buy a used car. Once again, a large purchase, but not in GDP. Financial assets like stocks and bonds, don't care. Imports, don't care. So all in GDP. So investment spending is really not that much. It's about $4.6 trillion. Government purchases about 4.4 trillion. Net exports are about 974 billion. Consumer spending, though, is about $17.3 trillion. Value added by business, about 19.5 trillion. Value added by households, about 3.1 trillion. Value added by governments, about 2.7 trillion. So there you go. That's who we are. We spend a ton of money on domestic goods. That's the crazy part to think about. Like consumer spending is consumer spending on domestic final goods and services. Just to put this into perspective for you, we spend roughly $100 million a year on bubble gum. 100 million a year on bubble gum. And that number's probably higher now because that's an old number I had. So with inflation, it's probably gone up. So GDP measures the size of the economy. You got to be careful when you compare economies over time. So this is where we get to real GDP. So increase in prices rather than increase in output. So you got to adjust GDP for the price changes. And that's why I was telling you the left and the right. The left was current dollars, the right was real GDP. And so you need real GDP to look at that. So cars, it's a good one to look at that. That econ movie is a good one to show that. We're going to stop right there and we will look at this when we get into video 3.